You all right, Terry?
Yeah. Just even the whole. Yes, yeah. Well, do you think you would like to be heard? Like the advance from no, the volunteer, I'm talking about the little, you know, got it? Just the engine will come off. Don't bring the whole wagon.
Yeah, I'm coming around behind you.
You got it now?
Yeah.
No, you see,
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
which is, I don't know what yours is, I can't work out. You've got the same thing, haven't you?
Yeah, mine is not.
Have you got, so you've got one on that one, where's the other one?
Yeah, the other side of the flywheel.
Okay, so
Yes.
now, what's the relationship with that rod? 180 degrees to it?
Yeah, normally on these stationary engines, I don't think there was
There was no reverse?
There was no reverse. No.
I mean, I was sort of sliding. Get the motion up on the roll. Just down. Yeah, they wouldn't go in the mat, they would.
Yes.
If you look, there was no reverse, I need to worry about reverse.
So that's not that wrong.
So, that's what I need.
Yeah, that's counterweight.
That's my mark.
Yeah.
It's only got a wash. You've got to go 2 or 3.
Yeah,
You have 1.5 inch. So you could do that by putting a right hand there. You're not stuck by that, you circle the rings.
Then they do actually. They represent a grain. Yeah.
Well, there's enough to go around, so we're not going to
I don't know, you know what it's like, the gannets get in first.
Yeah, I'll take your arm then.
You know, we come back.
Yes, yes, all right. I'll back on it. Yes, yeah.
Well, ladies are breaking. I mean, these things are reasonably very typical. Is your work outside?
No.
So it's overhead.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, I'll take your arm this arm.
Oh, it's real. Anyway, that's the one model. I've brought an army truck, going back to the Oshkosh manual, and we've got a palletized load system here, and although it's a manual model, what it is, you've got a pallet on the back which just comes up and down like that. The lorry actually picks the pallet up with the load on the back. Roger Wallace very kindly sent me some instructions about his lorry trucks. I don't know whether it's all Rogers or Nick Rogers, I think, had some built as well. So I brought along a couple of those, and to make it look more, I brought the multi-kit breakdown truck. So those are my models.
Which all I've got is a pair of wheels set there at the end of the track. Mick Gatkins, I must acknowledge, Mick and I sort of more or less brainstormed the idea to get a scale model 5-inch driving wheel, butchering, and I must confess I do butcher occasionally, just a basic 2-inch pulley, which gives you a driving wheel with a very small flange. The track, there was no way, I couldn't think of any way to make up track that was reasonably realistic without using the wood of the sleepers. The well wagon was the start of this business. Came what I thought was going to be a very simple idea, then became complicated because I started to make the horns for at the end of the girders there. I thought something should go in between the horns, so I did the 2 handling winches. They were fairly simple in themselves until I started to try and incorporate the lateral wind, the drum mechanism, for the hooks, which does it five times round to the main drum, and then it's the feed mechanism where do 5 feed at once from left to right. The stationary engine on there is just a piece of nonsense. I have a big problem being visually impaired, obviously getting my prototype material, so I'm being round today, so trying to scrounge ideas on precisely how the valve mechanisms of stationary engines work. Also, when you're down at that scale, the governor does work, but I can't do the traditional diamond layout, but it will work after a fashion. So anybody wants to come up and give me any ideas, I'll be only too willing. The guards van, which basically the Primus engineering sort of four-wheel wagon gave me the idea for that. I must confess I couldn't think of any idea of getting the observation windows at the side of the van without butchering a 1.5-inch girder. There's a technical name for that. Does anybody know what it is? That observation dome. Kind of a what?
Ducket.
Ducket. Thank you. Ducket. Thank you. I'm pleased with the pawls with boss, which are forming the brake shoes of the braking mechanism on the guards van. The well wagon hasn't got any brakes, and the suspension on the guards van works. I welcome anybody who can give me any ideas, or an 060 tank, maybe an O gauge, so I can get my hands on to copy, and I can let them have it back in at the October meeting, so I can complete the trio. Thank you very much indeed. That's all I've got to say.
And I've got a bit hooked on it. Anyway, this is a Diamond T. This is a Rogers trailer, and that's a Centurion tank. Hopefully it will go on the back of there if I can manage it. That was to the chairman, that was. All right. Well, it's obvious what it does. The suspension works, it's Horseman suspension, and the suspension on the bogey works as well. Oh, that's that bit. The off track goes along. Well, I can find a switch to this. I'm getting a bit mixed up with all these switches. Well, no, that's the gun, that goes round. That's the off track. It's got the front wheel drives as well. It's also got a power winch. But unfortunately, oops, the winch, I've pulled the rope off it, and the rope's in the back, that's my fault. That's a balloon winch. That's driven by those new universal joints, which are very good, those rubber things, 34p each. And that's the winch, the air's still out of the balloon. I've had it going for 2 weeks and it's about shot it now. This has got all the suspension and it's got a power winch as well, but you need a bit of a rod to work the gear lever. And this is the gun. It elevates, the breech opens. It also recoils, and you can traverse it limited by that.
Does it fire?
No. I think that's about it. I told you I'd be brief. Yeah, that's it.
It's a 1901 steam bus of French origins that was made, one of a series that were made for the sold to Spain as far as I know. I found the article in the autocar for 1901. I liked the picture, so I built the model, but the article was about the introduction of pneumatic tyres, but all the photographs show the bus prior to the introduction of those tyres. One of the reasons for building, apart from the fact that it was just reasonably attractive, is that it provided a use for the spoked wheel, which is one of those useless parts that never ever gets used. It has nothing very special about it. It's mainly appearances. It's powered, in inverted commas, with a reversing hot-weight motor, which is not man enough to push it along, I'm afraid. But and that's basically it. It's just appearances rather than doing very much, I'm afraid. So there we are. If you're interested in the article, it is here, and if you want to have a look at some of the other pictures, you're welcome to do that. Okay?
And I think at this point it would be a good idea to make quite sure we get one, is to give our user a round of appreciation for the forthcoming model report. It's in there somewhere,
Yes,
I
I'll get it marked.
I wouldn't read that rubbish if I were you.
And on to the write-up from Mike Cook. Thank you, Mike. But it says that I always build small models. And if he may have an idea that I've only got a small amount of Meccano. So maybe we should all club together and buy a little more. So we can build something bigger. Now, if you saw what I've got, that idea wouldn't get off the bed. First of all, this is made for the window display. And I was limited to height, 13 inches. All he got above it was a glass shell on chains, so you could have lifted that up. I'm going to make that bigger. He supplied the motor, that's why it's silent. Lovely, isn't it? Lovely. Next thing I made this big one, so it goes on. That's in the number 8 set. That's the other bought the set off this man. And got a whole host of black parts. They're all black. The other parts are made black with strips. 2, 4, 2, 8. That's the black parts. He must have blacked them up himself. There's 1 or 2 here. You can see it's shining. That's the original. I think all the rest is black paint. Well, maybe black paint. Take those along. Yeah, of course. After all leading down, you know there'll be a small one in it, didn't you? Do an awful one. An awful one. It goes along like that. Catch them, catch them. That ain't me. The original was in the Meccano magazine from years ago. But I've improved on it. That's it. I've improved on it. That's it comes up higher. And I think that's all. You know there'd be a small one or something. I was hoping Rod Ritchie would be here.
Yes, unfortunately he's still in hospital. I phoned him, last time I phoned him was on Thursday. He had some chemotherapy and it appeared to be working, but he was still fat on his back. But it does send his regards to everybody.
But if somebody has the patience to put together a computer-aided design set of instructions for this, it'd be a damn sight easier to build than the leaflets and small photographs that I have worked from. Having said that, I haven't worked from any CAD instructions, so that has yet to be proved. The only other thing to say is I took this to the South Wales meeting in January and said that I hadn't decided how to finish it. I had an idea of making it into a wrecking truck, breakdown lorry, and seeing Mike Cooper's latest model, I certainly wasn't going to build a trailer, and certainly wasn't going to build a fairground model. Since then I've had an idea for a fairground model on a trailer, so who knows what's going to be. That's all I'm doing.
Comments on the differentials, is that your building and that quite sure is that
I suspect it's my building. Yeah.
No, so it's, I'm just curious, that's all.
And I was never very impressed in a Meccano horse. I felt that for all the work that had gone into the model, it was a shame that it couldn't be finished off nicer. So I eventually managed to acquire some horses. They were just in plain plastic. I painted them up a bit, and so then I thought, right, now I can make a model. I stress it's not to scale. It's not a model of any particular one. It was just that I wanted to see if I could build a model where everything looked right at the end of it. So that was all it was for. I hit 1 or 2 snags. Might be interesting. I always thought that 24 of these plates all bolted neatly together gave you a nice circle. They do, till you want to put the 5.5-inch strips on the side. They're not compatible. So about every 3rd or 4th plate you have to put a washer in just to ease it out, just a little bit,
And then you've got the circle which matches up with the 5.5 inch circle strips. Meccano don't tell you things like that. It was simplified a little with the use of this new 5.5 inch ring, because before that models are usually run on a 3.5 inch ring, and the poor old Meccano rather than pinion on that, trying to turn everything, it tended to broach up. But with this 5.5 inch girder and a pinion on the side, it makes it a lot easier and a lot lighter. So I don't think there's really much to say about it. It's really a model suitable for exhibitions rather than club meetings, I think. Exhibitions for the public where you've got the kids there and they'll stand and watch it. And if you can put a bit of music to it as well, it does help a little bit. Got a bit of music somewhere. Anyway, that's all it was. I just wanted to see if I could make that work, and that's the outcome of it. As I say, it's not a scale model, it's not a copy of any particular one, but there you are.
Thanks very much indeed, Bob, and if you turn that up and you'll be in competition for building a Rogers Meccano model, which I still hold, of course. Well done, Bob, thanks. Philip, you're next.
Right, well, one is a little bit more of the tricky track layout. Forget the rest of it, I think you've seen most of that. What we've got here though is a down one way, back the other, and the idea is that the sorry, I'll do that here. The bridge is down at the bottom, and the idea is that it comes along, sets the bridge going this way, and then goes around, turns around there. When it comes back, goes over that bridge, across, and then in case there's a police car behind it, stops anything following. Anyhow, I've got lots of that. I've got 35, 40 feet of it made up for the exhibition. Interesting what Bob said about sector plates. You can see I've had a few. I've got a load more at home, and I don't think there's a single 90 degree in it. And I mean, forget 360. There's all kinds of washers in that one. They're all different ages, different sizes, different everything. So yes, they're supposed to be, but they're okay. Now, somebody was talking about computer-aided design.
Oh, I'll have to read it, won't I?
Absolutely. But the thing is, this is the latest. It's just one of these horse games. There are 3 player stations. I thought, well, no point bringing it all up together. Just thought I'd bring it along to just have a look at the colours really, and get some idea, and give me a chance to show off the McCain, it says. McCain. Interesting comment about plans. Computer-aided design, as I found doing these plans, it's the same problem as photography. You've got to get the right thing to illustrate. You know, the photography, if you don't get the right part of the model, or you don't get the right angle, you're in trouble. Similarly with this, I'm not saying that these are the perfect or anything. The nice thing about this though is that you can get rid of parts which are obscure in your vision, and you can show the essence of the mechanism, and you forget little things like whether they got nuts and bolts in and so on, which can often get in the way. So it's an interesting medium, it's an interesting exercise doing all of the work here. Roger will tell you, can get very absorbing. That's all. A few things. This is for the auction, isn't it?
No, it is not.
No. Robin brought an epicyclic gearbox, and I know nothing about epicyclic gearboxes.
I don't know they were.
No, it's
I'm
not
just on the
that
plan.
But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's worth a few bobbies. Anyway, that's all from me. Quick.
Hugh Henry. He's named and popped up several times in the model building contest in the 50s and 60s. This is one of the last of his models that I'm aware of, and is slowly being rebuilt from the photographs that are owned by the North Midlands Meccano Guild. First problem is trying to work off photographs this side, which is magnifying glass and eye strain problems, so I'm throwing a certain degree of technology at it to give myself a set that are this size with the background plus a cropped out or even in some cases bigger photographs. Hugh Henry's caption refers to it as a US Army walking truck. I've done some research on the basis that everything else Hugh built seems to have been based on a genuine prototype. And he seems slightly out on this one, and it's actually connected with the lunar research program done by the US Air Force, and was one of the contenders for the moon buggy. The big problem, one of the interesting problems I'm hitting at the minute is that certain aspects of it are still classified, particularly the power source and some other areas, but it's thought the bits of it are still around and in the museum's reserve collection, so hopefully at some point I'll get some photographs of the original. It was one of the runner-up models in the 1967 competition, for which one of the prize winners was a Mr. G. Illingworth with a fire engine. And it's an interesting model to try and build. I picked it to start with because it's one of the easier, well, less complicated ones of these. Trouble is, there's no familiar mechanisms. You have to think what everything does. You can't sort of look at the photographs and go, well, this is the gearbox, that's the differential. So it's been a bit fun. The legs do, I can move slowly backwards and forwards, so it will sort of eventually shuffle forwards. And the steering will be done by a looped chain going all the way around, which is steered from here. And so the legs can actually go in any direction. One of the problems I'm going to face is that for once in his life, he used a non-standard Meccano, non-standard motor, so I'm going to replace that with a sensible motor to try and get the thing to move. That's it as far as that's concerned. The other thing I've got with me, some of you may have seen the latest stuff from MW Models. Jeff's doing a data file on George Constantinesco, who did the talking about that was featured in some of the early Meccano magazines. So I've been doing the editing and layout work on that for Jeff, so I've brought my current working copy with me.
Right, okay, thanks very much indeed then, Tony.
Interesting part of that is the machine room. 1901 twin compound steam engine, which drives all the machinery in the adjoining room. This model has a problem in that you can't see both sides of it at the same time, but the partition wall is an essential part because a lot of the machinery is attached to it. On this model, anything that's part of the building itself, floor, the wall, pillars, ceiling joists, is in yellow and zinc. Actual machinery is in red and green. Now, what's going on here, the slip, which is the clay used for the actual pottery making, is prepared on site, i.e. sacks full of ground up animal bone, china, clay, etc., mixed with water in this vessel, and then pumped from there into another vessel under there, and then through a sieve, then into another vessel, and finally into a heating unit where it's in a fit state to be used. Very Heath Robinson, very strange. Heath Robinson himself had an input into the design, or they just made it up as they went along, one of the two. Nickel-elastic was used for the drives because the prototype uses foot-wide canvas belting. And that's about it. The interesting part of this is the endless rope, which only drives 3 pieces of machinery, the 2 vertical shaft and paddles underneath, and agitating this sieve. Now, in order for it to drive those 3, it has to be fed around no fewer than 18 different pulleys. and the rope had to have a join somewhere. And if it had a knot, the knot itself would be an obstruction and wouldn't actually pass between the pulleys. Fortunately, the cord I'm using is nylon, so it could be dissolved, the knot could be melted down to the same thickness as the rest. That's it.
I think the model of the engine is exquisite. To be honest, I think it stands as a wonderful model in its own right. Thanks very much indeed.
And your comment about Born China, I read recently that they've now developed a vegetarian or vegan China, Born China, which doesn't actually use animal bones anymore.
Much healthier.
Yes, yes.
I was thinking about taking this to bits until we decided to make the Shellman's Caravan to go with it. So that I took a few photographs and spoke to the field of Shellman at the steam rallies, and we come up with this. I made the bed out of Meccano, and then Joyce made the furniture for the inside, and then of course we know Shellman is about 1 inch to the foot. This is a number 8 Police Land Rover. This is Joyce has built this one. This is not mine. I had to fiddle with it though, because I put some flashing lights on the top, you see. I built a flip-flop to stick in underneath, just 2 transistors, 2 resistors and 2 capacitors to make it flash, and that's basically all there is to it. Yes, it's going to come apart now because Joyce wants to make a bus. Well, that's all.
I have to make it much bigger to put in the vast amount of steel work that was put in the original, but it's more or less proportional in its present form. The carriage will, at one time, held 600 men. This is, I think, for a test. But and it also carried 2 tram cars. When we were on it, it carried 2 minivans, I think. It was a very quiet time of the day. I apologise for the shortness of the run there. Something happened. A gremlin got into it. Travelling about over 100 miles, and I've not been able to sort it out. Hopefully I'll do this by the time of our meeting, Bill.
Absolutely, exhibition on Easter Saturdays.
Yes, we know.
Remember Lockdown?
One interesting thing, this is also from Phil's room. I got the motor from him, which is a double-ended one, and it's got high torque and a fairly low revs, which is excellent. The flywheel does a job. This is the only time I've ever used a Meccano flywheel to actually do a job, because I found that without the flywheel there wasn't sufficient momentum to operate the micro switch, which is just about to operate now. The flywheel provided just that little extra energy to do the job.
Nah, it's funny, I've just been tossing up during the body meeting. I think this is my 35th meeting. I must have brought different models to 30, and I've only got 5 trains. Anyway, the bus. And the first thing that comes to mind, I think, I'll build rather a bus, is a bright red London double-decker. I didn't really know what I was letting myself in for, because it's quite a lot of subtle tapers on it. The top leg tapers up, which is all right there, the back of course, problems and problems. The front end, from the passenger body onwards, also tapers in, and of course the nose tapers back. And you've got this fearsome curve to fill in, so in bodywork it's quite difficult. I've tried to follow the original as much as I could. Found out details from Roger and from a video. The original is all aluminium construction in the 1950s, which is quite amazing. It was the first car that has come out, the Audi, with all aluminium. It's independent suspension, coil spring suspension at the front. It's a rocking beam at the back. So there's a bit of flexibility in the mountings. So that there's some independence on it, so it doesn't rock over much. The original was power steering with the hydraulic crank. I managed to tickle a little motor in there. So if you're lucky, you'll get the wheel steering. And I've not got a PSP license. And I've never really had room to run it at all. So just how it'll behave, I'm not sure.
Watch it, you've got your lock over.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Everybody else is prepared to drive it. No brakes.
They're in flywheel. There aren't very many on the real ones.
Yeah, it should have a 4-speed automatic, which I heard. I'll turn it over, but where most of it are looking. Anyway, I'll put it on the side and leave it like that afterwards. See the suspension. It's unequal length links of the original. This is the B frame, and the whole of it moves. I've had to move the springs away from their original position. It should be up in the well here, because of what springs are there. Dick drives. This is a reduction before it gets to the back axis, because I think it's totally unfair to expect the model of this place to be shifted rather than this straight on the wheel. So in fact the wheels are free on that.
Very good.
And that's all driven by a Mark 1, Mark 2 motor. Black.
So it's all driven by one of these.
Well done indeed, Mark. Marcus Payne, I find, and I'm sure Brian and all our other customers, the rear dome on those is one of the most up-to-this ones to model if you either end up with too many holes or it's straight like that. I've heard, including myself, comment on Marcus tackled it very well, so for an amateur I think it's real.
That were produced in the Meccano magazine in the early 50s. And in November 1953, they produced a model of the Bell diesel mechanical loco, which was currently undergoing trials on British Railways. The overall propulsion seemed okay, but obviously Meccano hadn't attempted to reproduce the transmission itself, and I wondered if it might be worthwhile attempting to reproduce the Fell transmission in this model. Now, I won't go into too much detail because it's all in the blurb here, but essentially the Fell transmission consisted of a number of diesel engines coupled together through fluid flywheels and differentials, and the idea was that the number of engines actually in use would depend on the power requirements of the time. So in there, I'll show you a little bit more in a moment, there are 4 electric motors all combined to give a single power output through a total of 3 differentials. And you'll see, as I switch the motors on, how the speed of the drivers will progressively increase. Like so, that's all 4 motors running, and then we slow down again like that. The interesting thing happens when you start putting motors in reverse. If I do that, we slow down to half speed straight away, and if I do that, we end up going nowhere fast. So let's see what's inside.
Right, bear with me just a sec because this is a bit tricky to lift off. The in mesh is really quite small, and I don't think they're really very suitable when you've got a fairly high torque to transmit. But in this particular application, I think they work quite well. The output differential here is quite different, and as you'll see, that you're able to mesh the gears together across the full face of the T. Is Alan Partridge here, by the way?
No, he's good.
Oh, he'd have loved all these differentials, I'm sure. Just a point about this differential here. It's one of the very rare instances in Meccano where you have a choice of materials, because these 1-inch gears here, as far as I can see, they are genuine Meccano because they are stamped accordingly and they've got 38 teeth, but they're made of aluminium. And if anybody's got any background information on how Meccano came to make aluminium gears, I'd be interested to hear. But for this particular application, they're highly suitable because, as you will see, that differential still turns around at a fairly high speed, and I thought the use of aluminium there rather than heavy brass gears would reduce the flywheel effect somewhat. Another reason why it's a pity Alan Partridge isn't here, because I'm indebted to him for the use of dog clutches as universal couplings to help me use my bent rods in an application like this. He showed us all how to do this about 40 years ago, I think in 1959. But there it is, gentlemen, the Fell diesel loco in the car.
Thanks very much.
Okay, that's right. It's going to go back to about 1933 era for this one, 60 years or so. I'll tell you, first of all, I'll talk about the prototype for a few moments, then I'll move on to the model, all right? So the prototype is known as a Miles Hawk Speed 6. Apparently a number of these were built with a Cirrus engine in. Cirrus engines were obtained very cheaply, bankrupt stock I believe. It enabled the plane to be put out at a bargain price, £395. That was okay if you just wanted to pot around at your local aero club, but if you want to get into the air racing game, you had to dig a bit deeper and shell out for a de Havilland Gypsy 6, which of course is under the bonnet. And then you're all ready to go air racing, and this one, not this particular registration, but another one, GADOD, won the King's Cup air race at 147 miles an hour in 1934, so quite a goer in its day. I think that's about... Oh, it should of course have an enclosed cockpit, but I preferred an open one, so that's it, that's how I made that. The racing number would have been 8, not 4, but 4 is a lot easier to make than 8 when you've only got a few blue strips. Likewise, the registration, I started off G, had a bit of trouble with these curves. The A was a lot simpler, so I thought, well, blow these roundy letters, let's have a few straight ones. What better than LAN, just to finish off. So there we are, then I'll...
Couldn't get any letter set, Alan?
I've got some of the back of the cupboard.
Right, I'll switch him on, hope he's a goer. Yes, we have a bit of power there. Rubber band drive from a small buggy motor, a Japanese buggy motor. And if we put the jog chocks away, we have even more power. Might even take off if it wasn't quite so heavy. So the controls, none of them unfortunately are connected, they're all hand operated. You have to climb out on the wing to do the ailerons. Likewise the elevators and the rudder. Apart from that, oh yes, there is one thing I'd like to mention. That I built a Spitfire a couple of years ago, and I made the mistake of making the main spar insufficiently sturdy. And as the model progressed, the dihedral sagged under the weight of plates. So this time I did a better job on the main spar to make sure it didn't happen again. One thing you've got to watch the Meccano, it's so heavy that unless you get the chassis right, you're in trouble later on. Apart from that, I don't know. Well, there's a bit of a pain doing this bit. You
Don't do your plastic plates much good, but still, there you are. Such is life. I think that's about it then, okay?
Thanks very much indeed. Cheap cook and bottle washer. It's only hand operated at the moment, but she does intend to motorise it. I did actually buy her a PDU. So there we go. I haven't seen the model published. When Mark and Pat came round, they recognised it immediately as one of old Conk's things, and we actually found it in the Meccano Engineers archives. And would you believe Tina's actually modified the drive, so when we publish it I gather we're going to get letters from the Queen and all sorts of things. There we go. As I say, that really is Tina. She's dead proud of it and she's asked me to bring it along. And I must admit I'm envious because you can see it's all built from a nice new shining upper tensor.